Yo, what is up guys? Welcome back to another new video on our channel Collect 4. Thank you to everyone that has so far subscribed, liked the videos, commented, all that awesome stuff. We really appreciate it as we grow the channel. It's my second channel away from the gaming stuff that I normally do. You guys have really been enjoying the car boot videos and they will be continuing throughout the winter. But today's video will be a bit different. A lot of questions we've had recently from people saying, how do you get set up? How did you start up and what do I need to do? So we thought we'd take you through the process of becoming a reseller, whether that's because you want to do it full time, whether that's because with the cost of living you want to earn a bit of extra money on the side. Anyone can do what we do. It is so easy to do because nowadays the internet exists, and so anything you need to work out in terms of what something is worth, what you can pay for something, it's all at your fingertips. So we're going to go over where to sell, how to sell, what you should sell, and what you do once you do sell, basically. Everything in detail from start to finish. So we'll get into it and I'll be right back. Alright, one of the most common questions that we get asked is, what do I sell? What should I be selling if I want to make money? And that is the most open-ended question because genuinely you can sell anything. It comes down to, number one, what you have some knowledge of, or number two, what makes money. And for us personally, I love electronics. It's always been something that I've really enjoyed, so I know my electronics quite well. Sean is a massive collector of shoes and jackets and clothes. And we are people just generally, we buy a lot of our clothes secondhand from Depop, Vinted and stuff like that. And so as a starting point for anybody, that's a really good place to start because you can pick stuff up very cheaply, and I'll explain how in a minute, relatively cheaply, and you're able to sell it on for profit pretty quickly. It always helps if you know what you're talking about. That's the most important thing. So we know our electronics very, very well. So we know how stereos work, tuners work, games consoles work, all that sort of stuff. So having some prior knowledge of what it is you're hoping to buy and sell is pretty important. But for something like clothes, you don't really need to have massive knowledge of clothes. You just need to know what you'd pay for them yourself. So when it comes down to, right, I'm going to go out and I'm going to start buying and selling stuff. Let's say you are going to buy clothes. You would know roughly and have a little look on to selling sites like eBay, Depop, Vinted, all those sort of sites to see roughly what a pair of Nike trainers, for example, sells for. So let's say you're thinking about selling a pair of Nike Air Force Ones, you'd be able to search and find out what a pair of Nike Air Force Ones in that condition would sell for. And that's the most vitally important thing when it comes to knowing what to sell. It's try and have an idea of what it is you know. So anything it is that you go, right, I've got knowledge of this system. You might know games and gaming very well. You might know board games really well. They are really good places to start. And that's how you start getting going bit by bit by bit. Because if you know what you're talking about, it's easy to sell to people. It really, really is. So that's sort of where you start off with. That's the most important part. Once you've done that, you diversify and you start to build out, and you'll start to realise that more things sell. Yesterday, for example, we picked up a fish tank heater just because it was there. We paid £1 for it, so we thought you'd get that. You start to diversify over time, but start with the basics that you know of, and that's the best place to begin. And if you're not sure, clothes is always a really nice place to start. We'll get into how you get started. I'll be right back. All right, so how do you get started? Again, major question we get asked. How do we know where to buy from? What do we do? I'm here to tell you it's pretty simple. Anywhere you can buy things secondhand is usually the best place to start. The ideal place out of everywhere you go to, car boot sales. Car boot sales are great because most people are just clearing out their houses. They just want stuff gone. They want to make a bit of money. But that's where most of your profit and most of our profit lies in. So we pick up a lot of shoes. We pick up a lot of clothes. We pick up a lot of electronics from these places because people don't want to go home with the goods. So they bring, I don't know, 3 bags of clothes with them. All they really want to do is clear that stuff out. It might be because they need the room. It might be because they need the money. And that's the basic starting place. When it comes to what should you pay for these items, it really does depend per item. There's no one size fits all whatsoever. We have a rough idea of when we buy trainers, for example, we don't really want to pay more than £5, £6, £7 for a pair of trainers. However, we have paid £30 for a pair of trainers before because we know they're a £120 pair. That is where the sort of social media platforms come in, and that is where the selling platforms come in. As you walk around the car boot sales, you're able to look at things like eBay, at things like Depop, at things like Vinted, and see from there, see from these places what stuff is selling for. So you might pick up a pair of Nike trainers, okay? Now, all Nike trainers on the inside of the label have a code. It's a 9-digit code, 6 followed by a dash and then 3 other digits afterwards. You can search the exact pair of shoes by doing that, the exact pair of shoes. Then all you've got to do is type that pair of shoes into eBay, into Depop, and it will tell you. So you might search a pair of shoes and it might be I don't know, cheapest pair is £30 on Depop and this person's asking a fiver. You know you can buy those because you're pretty hard to sell them for probably £28 to £30 on Depop, put them back on there, make a profit and move on. It's as simple as that. And to car boot sales are great. Charity shops can be very, very good too. Charity shops are very, very solid. The only thing I'd say about charity shops nowadays is they've clued on to the fact that people resell. And so charity shops can be quite expensive compared to car boot sales. Doesn't mean you can't pick up good deals, but we tend to avoid charity shops. I just don't think the margin is there for what we do and how quickly we like to flip things on. But charity shops are a very good place to start with, realistically. If you aren't really sure what you're doing, it gives you a bit more time to look in the charity shop, pick the item up, research it, buy it if you want to. Car boot sales are a bit more intense. There's a lot of people around you waiting to see if you're going to buy something. And so charity shops are a bit more of a chill place to do it. And outside of that, second-hand shops. They're really, really good places to think about picking up items. You get house clearance shops, places like that. They deal with things like second-hand furniture, electronics, whatever it is that you want to. Vintage sort of clothing shops, so second-hand vintage shops. They can be really, really good too. Thing about them is they tend to be more expensive, but what you do have in your favour is if the item isn't working and it's sold to you as working, you can take it back. You can't do that with a car boot sale. You can do it at the charity shop, but it feels a bit awful to go back to a charity shop and do that. But most of those places are subject to the Sale of Goods Act, so you're able to take it back if it's not working. It's advertised as such, you can get your money back. So your risk is lower than it would be at a car boot sale, where a lot of the time you're taking punts, realistically. So that's the best place to start. Car boots, in my opinion, nothing will ever beat them. It's as simple as that. But we're talking to what you need to get started in terms of a budget, and then we'll go into where you sell the items and how you sell them. I'll be right back. All right, so we get asked a lot, how much do you need to get started? And that is a question that can't really be answered. It all depends on what income you have. Some people go straight at it full time and throw all the money they've got at it to try and go full time. I wouldn't suggest you do that. For anybody starting out, what I think about is what can you afford to spend without being tight on money. So let's say you get paid, I don't know, £1,000 a month, let's just say, theoretically. I know people earn more than that. But after your bills, you're left with £250 spare after everything. I know that's not going to happen, but just to say. £250 spare. You might want to take 20, 30% of that, £50, £75, and utilise that as your starting budget to go and buy stuff at a boot sale. And basically, that's the most important part of it. That first, second, third time of buying, that's what builds your stock levels up. And when you look at your page that you're selling from, if you've got 2 things on there, people are like, great, cool, whatever. You've got 100 things on there, people flick through. The more stuff you have listed, the more you'll make. But I would start with like a 20% of your expendable income, 25% of your expendable income. Go and buy stuff and then list them up and try and make your profit from there. You want to limit your risk when you first start out. You don't want to be putting your whole monthly wages into it, because if it doesn't sell quickly enough or doesn't sell at all, you're not going to go and make that money back, and it'll put you in financial difficulty. So only use initially what you can afford to buy into, basically. That's vitally important. A lot of people liken it to things like when people gamble and whatnot. It isn't gambling, because you're using your knowledge of stuff to know what they're selling for. But they always say only gamble what you can afford to lose. In this situation, only buy what you can afford to lose. But you shouldn't lose. If you do your research, you shouldn't lose. It should be fine. As you start to grow and as you start to increase your income, when you first start reselling, most of what you sell should go back into the business again. Especially if you've got a job already that's paying your bills. Whatever your reselling income is, that should go back into it again to continue to build your stock up bit by bit by bit. We're at a stage now where we take a wage out of it because we've been able to do that over time. Initially, it wasn't that though. Everything went back into it to keep making money, to build it up to the point where we could go out and buy big bulk amounts of things, and we had solid income coming in. So that's all you really need. You can spend more if you want to spend more and you've got that money, but I would just make sure you always remember, only buy with money you can afford to buy with. Do not borrow money to go and buy stuff, because it's never guaranteed that you'll make that money back. Don't spend more than you've got, because that's never a good idea. You leave yourself short. And make sure that you are keeping an eye on what you're selling, how much you're bringing in, to know roughly what your margins are. Simple as that. We'll talk about the sites that you sell on now. I'll be right back. All right, there are loads of different places you can sell your items, but one is the key that you should always use, and that is eBay. eBay is the biggest and the best for a reason. We use it for most of our sales. You can sell anything on eBay. eBay's better, in my opinion, for our electronics than it is for clothes, but you can sell clothes on there. eBay, you have to deal with annoying customer service, and you have to deal with quite a few iffy buyers. eBay is full of them. I put it bluntly, there's full of a lot of iffy buyers. But it is where you make the bulk of your sales. I would always start there as a place to start whenever you're doing it. However, if you're the sort of person that's going to list clothes, shoes, stuff like that, Vinted and Depop are your best places. Vinted, in my opinion, is one of the best selling platforms out there by an absolute country mile. It is so easy to use. It's very easy to get sales on. It's all about pricing it right, obviously, and doing it the right way. But it's a very, very good place to basically make a decent amount back very, very quickly because stuff sells quickly. The important thing you have to understand when it comes to reselling is cross-posting, and that means selling across as many platforms as possible. The more platforms your stuff are on, the more people see them, the more likely you are to get a sale. So most of our stuff is listed across all three. We even utilize Facebook Marketplace for some of our things. And we're going to branch out eventually soon to places like Etsy as well. But eBay is the bread and butter. That's where you want to be starting, especially if you're working with anything that isn't clothes. It's so easy to list on there as well. What eBay does have as a great feature is, let's say I've gone and bought a specific type of amp. Let's say it's a Yamaha amp with a specific type model number. I can search that model number. It will tell me what they've sold for recently, so I know roughly what they're worth. I'm able to use another listing that's sold, as it says sell one like this. I click on that and it fills out all the details for me. I then just add all of our details, a description relating to R1 in specific, and it can make things very, very easy in terms of listing and getting sales from. The important thing about eBay is reputation. It's all about getting as many sort of bits of feedback as possible from people. The more you sell on eBay, the easier it becomes to sell. People start to trust you because your ratings are good. The only thing you have to bear in mind with eBay and with Depop is they take a fee. Vinted don't do that. With Vinted, you get all of the money you sell from it. Every single penny goes to you. They take their fees, I think, from advertising and from the buyers. When the buyers buy, they get a buyer's fee. It's like a service fee. So as a seller, you get everything, which is great because you know exactly what you're going to get back when you list something up for it. An important thing, we tend to use buy now on eBay. I don't like auction listings very much. Always be willing to accept an offer though. The most important thing is when you sell stuff and when you're selling bits and bobs, people make offers. Sometimes it's good to accept those offers. Sometimes it makes sense to accept those offers. So think about that. But that's the places that you sell: eBay, Vinted, Depop. I'll be right back. All right, so you started to buy and you've listed some stuff and you've sold some stuff. It's fantastic. This is the most important part of any transaction when it comes to buying and selling and being a reseller. Get your stuff posted off quickly, number one, and make sure you package it very, very well. These are two most important things. First reason, and we talk about, is packaging quickly. The quicker you send something, the quicker they receive it, the quicker you get paid. Don't be that person that leaves it there for a week and a half waiting to send it. Send it as soon as you possibly can. For the clothes and the shoes, I think Sean does it 2-3 times a week. And for the electronics, we do it twice a week, okay? We post out on a Tuesday and a Friday. That's as simple as it gets. The reason we do that is we send on the Friday. So anything Friday, Saturday, Sunday that sells gets packaged up on the Monday ready to go out, and then vice versa for the end of the week. We do that because the quicker we send our stuff, the quicker we get paid, the quicker we can reinvest that money. It's as simple as that. The quicker you can do all these things, the quicker you get that money back. When you first start out, they may be holds to make sure that things are done right. We don't get holds anymore because they know that we've done it for long enough that we don't need that. But when you first start out, before you build up a bit of trust, they put things on hold. So once buyers receive items, they can mark them as received and they're happy with them. It will release your funds quicker. And that way you'll be able to go and buy some more stuff. Because ideally you want to be able to buy once a week from a car boot sale at minimum. You want to be able to go out every Saturday or Sunday, go for a few hours, buy a load of stuff and get it sold. And it's the same thing when we come talk about packaging quickly. Make sure you list quickly as well. Don't leave things sitting there for weeks at a time. Try and get it listed within the first couple of days. You can't sell something unless it's selling. But moreover than that, we learned this the hard way plenty of times. Packaging is key. We sell electronics. Some of them are very fragile. When we first started out, we wrapped them up in what we thought would be okay. But couriers are notorious for throwing parcels about. And so things get broken very, very easily. So packaging is vital. And packaging is expensive. We used to use second-hand boxes all the time, but they're hard to come by to make sure you did it. So we started buying boxes. They are recycled boxes, but we started buying them because we knew that they would basically protect the items a lot better. We started using a lot more bubble wrap or filler into our packages. And what we realised was we could charge for that. So don't think, okay, well, I'm going to go and list up an item and I'm going to charge $5.99 delivery because the courier charged me $5.99. Your packaging, it's postage and packaging. So you've got to charge that packaging. So if a box is costing you £1.50 and the bubble wrap's costing you £1, charge for that. and you would be surprised how many people are happy to pay the price of posted packaging, especially if you do it properly. We always put in our listing, we package very, very well. So when someone buys our item, they know they're paying for the packaging being very good too. Very, very good too. And so we charge for that. We charge for what it costs us to package the item up, charge for our time and stuff like that. And people will do it. People will pay for it. It's less relevant if you're buying shoes and clothes. You can just buy the posting bags. They're very cheap. They're like 10p each. You can just put those in there and you haven't really got to worry about that. But if you're sending bulkier items, it's important to package them well. And you're going to understand this now. You're going to have multiple things to think about when it comes to the final transaction. Number one, you may get some breakages. It happens. It's part and parcel of the business. If you package it well, if you do all the things you should do, you'll be able to claim that back so long as you're covered for it. So, for example, some couriers won't cover you for laptop screens, for example. So you have to be really careful with those if you're going to sell them. We don't for that exact reason. But let's say you send out an amp like we would. It gets there, it's been smashed to pieces. So long as we can send them a photo from before, we take a photo of our items, how they've been packaged and ready to go. The buyer can send one as well. So long as you do that, you can then put a claim in with the courier. And even if you've got to refund the buyer, you can claim that money back from the courier. The most expensive items, you should always pay the extra to compensate for them. When you're first starting out, it makes complete sense. It's a no-brainer. Again, this cost can be passed on to the buyer when you do your postage and packaging. But except you're going to get breakages, it happens. Except you're going to get people that are unhappy and complain, it happens. This is part and parcel of the business. Just have a set return policy. We don't accept returns because something doesn't fit. For example, it's all second-hand clothing, but we will accept returns if there's damage to the item that maybe we didn't see, or if the buyer's really that unhappy. But most of the time, buyers are happy. Like I don't honestly say it's about 1 to 2 out of every 100 transactions you get a complaint or a problem. Most of the time, buyers are happy with what they get and they don't complain at all. As time's gone on, we've got very good at knowing exactly how to phrase everything, make it so clear. This is what you're buying. This is the condition it's in. This is what to expect. And it's vitally important that you understand that. They are the basics of being a reseller. They're the basics of how to make money from it. Like I say, start small when you first get going. But I promise you when I say this, anyone can do what we do. Anyone, if they want to work hard enough, can make it a full-time job as long as you know what you're talking about. Don't just dive into it and think that's what you're going to do. But if you're out of work, why not try it? Or if you're in work and you've got a bit of expendable income, why not try it? There are loads of ways to make money out there. I love reselling because it means you're giving a new lease of life to something that might otherwise go in the bin and be thrown away. To me, that's part of what makes it enjoyable. You're doing a good by the environment. You're recycling items again. Someone else gets to love and appreciate something you're sending them. And we have some really good relationships with our buyers and people that we buy stuff from. We have really good relationships with them, and it feels like you're genuinely doing a good thing. People are getting a bargain. Stuff isn't going in the bin. You're making money. Life's good. That's how you get started. Please make sure if you like the video, you drop a like on it and you comment and subscribe to the channel. We are growing all the time. But for now, click 4 out. We'll see you soon.